And welcome back as we kick off for the Strip Naked podcast. My name is Marci Cornegie. And, I was thinking, I wanted to remind everybody, I started this podcast just to shed a little bit of light on the experiences, faced by elite athletes and how their sport identity has many times shaped who they are as people, and how sport transcends beyond the playing surface and integrates and so often takes over an athlete's daily life. And as those athletes step away from sport, I wanted to make sure that I was giving them the space to share their experiences on their transition from elite athlete to whatever their next step is. And, as we know, sport at this level can be so consuming. And for so many, it can be a tough grieving process, leaving that lifestyle of grit and grind behind. And for others, sport can be just one area of their whole living plan, or just one of the vehicles to self-discovery, self-confidence, creating seemingly a pretty smooth transition away from the sport and towards future plans. And that brings us here today. We are joined today by Anya Covington, who has a unique perspective on how being an elite collegiate and professional basketballer and coach has impacted her transition into leadership and culture, advocacy, and her ability to rely on her upbringings, her values and faith to lead new generations to be the best versions of themselves, and to lead through human connections and from a place of wholeness and being solutions oriented. Anya is the CEO and lead consultant of her own company, Human2Human, and is based out of Edwardsville, Illinois, USA. So welcome, Anya, to the Strip Naked. We are so happy, or I am so happy to have you here talking with me today.
I'm happy to be here too. And that name alone, Marci, Strip Naked, have mercy.
That was probably going to be one of the first questions I was going to have to ask you, is if you felt a little bit nervous agreeing to talk with us, just based off the name itself.
Initially, I just think vulnerability, right? I think of take your mask down, take off all of the things that society, culture, other people, or even you have put on you. Take it all down and just be your raw, authentic self. So I'm here for it.
Hey, let's do that today. That is awesome. I couldn't have said it better myself. Whenever we came up with the name, I was thinking, it's like taking an onion and you're just peeling back layers, just getting to the raw, the parts that kind of make you cry even. Realizing when you got to sharpen your knife to keep cutting through layers. And yeah, that's sort of where the Strip Naked came with. And of course, I love a good pun on words too.
It is risque. You know what I'm saying? It's risque out here, Marci.
I love it. All right, Anya, now that we've got you and we're going to get a little bit vulnerable and pull the mask off, let's take a little peek at little Anya. Let's go back a little bit, because I think it's really important to understand your story. Best is to understand you grew up in a house of 4 little ones, a loving home, and basketball. And take us there.
Yeah, I love to introduce my story. I come from storytellers. I come from a legacy of hard workers, shakers and movers that were trailblazers in every area that they walked in. My parents, I love them. They've been married 36 years, known each other for a few years before that. My father served this country for 16 years. And then my mother has just been the epitome of a phenomenal woman. And I say all that with the emphasis that they're imperfect, that they had their own things to deal with, but they loved us as well as they could. And I would end the caveat with, they raised 4 leaders, 4 captains. We knew how to work hard. We were self-assured since before we were born. I felt like they were praying over us. Our grandparents were praying over us, and those prayers kept us. So in my household, you were encouraged every day to take hold of who you were in Christ and who you were secondarily in this world, because my faith leads everything around me. So I first believe we're all made in God's image, and from that you're perfectly loved. So there's nothing that can happen in this world that can take that love away. But then second, you're also these other things, right? So I am a dark-skinned, beautiful Black woman in this world, and my mother would remind me of that after I was reminded that I was a child of God. And so I knew who I was from a young age, and that has been instilled in me, and it still reigns true today.
I love that, and amen to that too. You talk so much about the self-confidence and being so self-assured. I want to jump to that, but first of all, I want to bring basketball into this a little bit too, and
Sure.
kind of run the parallels. And when did you pick up basketball, and when did you figure out, hey, I kind of want to play this for, in competition. I want to get better. I want to see how good I can be. I want to see how far I can take it, and
Yeah.
and see what happens there.
Sure, Marcy. So, my mom's a Hall of Famer. I have to start with this caveat. Okay. She's a Hall of Fame basketball player, still holds 4 out of 6 records at her high school. That was once the most winningest high school in the state of Illinois. I give you that caveat to let you know that there was a time where I played basketball in 2nd grade, but I wouldn't consider it playing. I thought basketball was about who could grab the ball and run as fast as they could. And my debut was in 2nd grade, playing on my older brother's team, who was in 4th grade, and they were his teammates were the mini NBA, and I was confused, chatty Cathy, and got to play one game. And when I got the ball, I ran off the court into the lobby where my mother had to go and get me, return the ball, set me down. And that was my last time playing ball until I decided that I was interested in it in 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
But just so you know, my older brother loved the game. He was playing it. He played all kinds of sports. I was into church and theater. My mother was a playwright. So that was where I was. I would go play football outside, but I didn't really pick up a basketball seriously until 7th grade, when I was 5'11", really uncoordinated. And we moved back to the city where my mother is a Hall of Famer. So I'm going to let you just put all those things together. Okay. So basketball became real to me at that point, and I wanted to start achieving greatness after I got a taste of it. So 7th grade, I was really bad. I averaged 10 points and 10 rebounds, but those 10 rebounds were me rebounding my own shot over and over again.
Because you were 5'11".
Because I was 5'11", and honestly, like week 3, I got hit in the face with the ball and I started ducking. Like, it was bad. Like, I'm the second tallest person on the court, because we had a 6-footer. I played on the 8th grade team, but so we had a 6-foot 8th grader. But in 7th grade, I was tall and athletic. I could block your shot, you know what I'm saying? But I was probably going to get it and run with it. Like, I was uncoordinated, but the spirit that lives in me now was in me then. I was going to work my butt off. I was like this doe-eyed 7th grader that just wanted to do it well if I was going to do it, and probably tried too hard. So I was everywhere at all times, clumsy, falling over, knocking people over, and then making some really genius moves at times. But my older brother was my biggest inspiration. He would go outside and practice every morning at like between 5:30 and 6 a.m. And when I got a glimpse of basketball, my mother and my dad, they didn't force it on me. They just said, whatever you do it with all of you. And so I would watch him. And after my 7th grade year, I was like, you know what? This is something I really like. I want to get better at it. And so I would wake up at 5:30, watch him, and then I would go outside and try and do what I saw him do. And I went from 10 and 10 my 7th grade year to averaging like 33 points my 8th grade year. And it clicked and I only went right, and I ran over everybody, and I blocked everybody's shot. But there was a huge jump for me from 7th to 8th grade. But it was me watching my older brother and the encouragement of my mom to go for it. She was so subtle to go for it. And my father was like, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it great, with great discipline. So that's kind of what basketball became a thing for me, and other sports. I was a 3-sport athlete. Well, really 4 in middle school, because I also did cross country, only because my parents, I had to stay in shape. I did not like it. I did volleyball and I did track, and I was in the church. We were really well-rounded, and we're going to talk more about that later, but I had all the things, but basketball became real to me probably going into my 8th grade year.
Yeah, I love that, because, usually when you got parents of such discipline and you got a Hall of Fame elite athlete herself and your mom, usually you can picture really easily them standing there in the corner of the gym saying, harder, faster, stronger, more free throws. Basketball is life, and drilling that type of identity into their own blood, their kids, and expecting, you see it on TV and on social media and in the news about just how demanding those parents can be. And, it's so rough to see it, because you and I know how much sport is important and how much it can drive so much, but there is so much more in life. Right. And that's what I love so much about your story, Anya, is that, it was, you wanted to be the best you can with doing whatever it was you were doing at the time, but that sport wasn't everything. You had faith, you had religion, you had people, you were making connections at school, you were doing a little bit of everything, and you were doing it as a family unit, which I love too.
I love it too. And I just want to add, because we need to get off this, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they're never forced, because when I moved back to her hometown where she's a Hall of Famer, like folks were dogging me because I was not well. And what I could say about my mother was this: she was the best coach that I've ever seen. She, when we went back, she coached for 2 years, and she's the most winningest coach out there in her 2 years. And what I witnessed her, because I never got to play for her, because when I got to the high school where she was coaching, she coached freshmen, I instantly got moved up to JV varsity. But she made every last one of her players, including her children, understand their worth. Like when she coached, everybody had purpose. So when she came to our games, I'm gonna talk about my upbringing. I'm not going to, college was a different story. Got upset. It was upset because we didn't do what they knew that we could do, right? Like I didn't go for a loose ball, right? I didn't give it my all, or my attitude wasn't right. It was, they coached us and our character, and for sure pushed us in our talent, but they pushed us in areas where they set a high standard, and we wanted that. But it was never like my daughter should or should not be playing or anything like that, because my mom believed that if we worked hard and did what we were supposed to do, we would be where we should be. But she was the best coach I ever witnessed. And even with every last one of her players, she found purpose for them. She built them up all the way around. She supported them everywhere in their life, and they worked hard. They ran their butts off. They were in shape. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I would have loved to play for my mother in high school, because she pulled the best out of everybody. And that is my greatest inspiration. And when I coached and when I coach now, but I had to throw that caveat in there because
No, I love that.
she did it well. Yeah. Okay. It's my 2 cents.
Thank you. And I really kind of want to meet your mom now. She reminds me a lot of my mom. And I think it's really special when you got moms like that, yeah, they point you in the right direction and they expect big things, and motivate you to do so and create the environment for motivation, because nobody can motivate another person. As you know, it's creating that environment and that safe space to go out and get things done. But you just mentioned that college was a little bit more of a different story than first picking up the ball. What was a little bit different in your experience at Wisconsin?
Gotcha. Well, we had to migrate to high school, because with high school, when I changed my mindset in 8th grade, I started getting letters from colleges. I'm a little bit older than, our kids nowadays. So college coaches could reach out and do certain things then. So I was the first one to experience that out of our 4 siblings. My older brother didn't have that opportunity, but he set the tone for all of us. And so because of my height, and I got to put this out here, so if young people are hearing this, because of my work ethic and character, it put me on a fast track to be ranked in the state and ranked nationally. Okay. So entering my freshman year, I may not have been able to put the ball in the basket as consistent as I figured out how to do it later. There were some intangibles about me that were instilled by my parents that coaches loved. I was the first to the floor. I worked my butt off. Defense was all about heart, and yes, some ability, but heart. And I gave that every possession. So even if I had off games offensively, what usually never skewed was my defense, my effort, my rebounding, my leadership, my communication. And so that put me on a fast track to be ranked in the state, to be ranked nationally. So high school actually was a little different than middle school as well, because not only was there an expectation that my parents had on me to do certain things, I had an expectation of myself, and I had goals. And I also did not start dreaming of college until probably like my sophomore year of high school, because, Candace Parker was taking over, and we had actually played for the same AAU team. I started playing AAU in Chicago, because in the southern part of Illinois where I was at, there was nothing that compared. And so I got to go see basketball at a whole nother level. And my mom, she pushed that. She saw my ability. She pushed that, and she drove me 4.5 hours on weekends up to Chicago, where I got to play with, everybody I played with won Division I. Like, it was wild. And that's where, and obviously the letters I was given, but I got to be around a higher level of basketball, to be honest with you, with coaches that were pulling stuff out of me and, coaching me in a different way than what I was used to. And I love them all, but the style was completely different. My father didn't even yell at me, but I had men coaches yelling at me, so that challenged my character as well. But it put me on a fast track. So when I played high school ball, there was higher expectation because of what I had accomplished and what I said I wanted. I wanted to go to college, and I wanted to have a successful college career. So I pushed higher expectations. So did my mom, and so did my dad. So you don't step out here and play any less against a team that may or may not be as talented, right? Every night if I said my goal, I set goals and my parents held me to those. I said I wanted to average a double. And so when I didn't get it, we talked about it. Why didn't I get it? And what happened, right? I wanted to be a well-rounded basketball player. So when I missed passes, when I missed open teammates, we talked about that. And we had conversations like, was it me being selfish or did I not see him? And it was funny too, looking back, because I actually had some health problems going on, but we didn't know until college. So we've had some wild conversations where my mom was like, how did you not see that girl in front of you? I was like, Mom, I didn't see her. But I'm a sickle cell trait, and that really played into my story getting into college. So I was out there having crisis and they really couldn't see people. And my parents, this showed me their love, Marci. My parents were in the front seat and I'm in high school, us not knowing that I'm having like crises during the game. Girls, to the left of me, open on 3-point line, calling for the ball. And I got the ball. I was driving down the court hard with my right hand, and sometimes I had to look down. So, but I had good court vision. But if I, when in these crises, I was very, very limited in my vision. So I'm telling my parents, like, I didn't see her. They loved me so well that they didn't combat me. They just got quiet and literally started praying. They just like, this girl said she didn't see a wide open person. Full court. They never combated me. They would talk to me and ask. And then in college, I ended up having a episode that actually I passed out and died on the basketball court. And that's when we realized that I was having some medical issues all the way back into high school.
Wow.
So it all kind of came to fruition. But this is where I can say my parents loved me more than they loved my achievements. And I say that with the same hand that they had high expectations for me. Mm-hmm. So the difference with me going from high school to college was I was expected to do well academically because I did in high school, graduated 3.8, honors classes, whatever, all that good stuff. Honor Society, National Honor Society, whoever. I was student council, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Still did all the sports. I worked a job since my sophomore year. I had jobs since I was younger. So we did all the things, Marci. And I was a leader to my younger siblings. I did my chores. Here and there I was grounded, but it was not for the thing. I was grounded because, what I'm saying, them dishes, my parents had to tell me twice to do the dishes. Like my parents had a lot of discipline, but a lot of faith. We had a lot of fun. But when I got to college, I was able to step out on my own 2 feet, and my parents' expectation was for me to honor my upbringing, but most importantly, honor God. So they were on me on how I treated people. They were on me on how I respected people, and on me on how well my academics were and how well I put my talents together with my team and led my team. I was expected to be a leader, in which I was.
Which is so easy to lose sight of those things. We lose sight of those things as a society.
Yeah, because we've become so selfish. But I actually wanted to read this scripture, and this is a great segue. This was something that hit me my senior year of high school and kept me throughout my college years. It's 1 Corinthians 10, verse 31. It says, therefore, whether you eat or you drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. But then when you fast forward down to verses 33, it says, just as also, and this is Paul who wrote this letter speaking to the Corinthians. So when he says I, it's Paul. So just as I, so Paul, also please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of many, that they may be saved. Imitate me just as I imitate Christ. I took that to heart, Marci. I told my parents, they raised leaders and captains. So I was made a captain the middle of my freshman year of college. Mm-hmm. My voice had power. I worked my butt off. There was one person I felt like on the team that worked harder than me, and she was a leader for me. And that was Raylan D'Elia, who is played in the Olympics and is still playing over in Italy. She's the only person I'm giving that credit to, okay? That worked hard. Like I was going to win. I was going to push, and I was going to bring my teammates with me. And my coaches saw that in me in high school, but also there. And I tried to keep that the main thing. I did lose my way senior year of college, and we can talk about that. But I'm gonna go back to my parents one last time. You couldn't tell me anything about college, Marci. I played in the University of Wisconsin. I played for the Badgers. You couldn't tell me nothing from the day I stepped foot on campus, June of 2008 to about December, right before Big Ten. I had an amazing first, 6 months or whatever that was, 5 months of college. It was outstanding. I love my teammates. I got challenged. We grew together. We were a squad. Big Ten hit and everything changed. Coaching staff made their decisions on who was going to play and how they're going to play. And they really tried to put us in some boxes, from my opinion. And it was terrible for our freshman class. Like, we all were transferring. Mm-hmm. So I'm calling my mom home. I'm calling my parents, right? And I say call my mom because I called my mom and my dad was sitting there. I called my dad, in emergencies. It was my mother who I talked to every day.
Gotcha.
So I called my mom My dad's listening. I'm like, Mom, I'm out of here, right? Like, this is not for me. Mm-hmm. And then this is funny. I told you I call my mom, but my dad's always listening. So, he said, bet. In essence, he was like, bet. My parents reminded me that I made a decision I chose that school. I was ranked in the nation. I had everyone offer me a scholarship except for UConn and Tennessee was my dream school. But everybody else, I had an offer. I could have played anywhere, and I chose Wisconsin. I made a commitment, right? They were big on that. You made a commitment. And at the end of our conversation, with all my tears, and that was the last time I cried home about basketball, they told me to make it work, figure it out. Their words was figure it out. So Marci, I did, right? I had to change my perspective. I had to decide that who I was going to be. I had to decide how I was going to have hard conversations with my coaches. I had to decide how I was going to have my best experience at a place that I chose. Now, I was not being like physically abused or emotionally abused and all that good stuff. So my story, I don't want anyone to think that you need to say an abusive situation. I was in a situation that I did not agree with in some terms and this or that. And I didn't agree with a few things, but I decided that I was going to make my situation work. So I never complained back to my parents about transferring. I was a Badger. I was going to be a Badger. And I had some really amazing mentors that God led in my life at the right time, like Coach Howard Moore at Wisconsin. He was on the men's side, and he reminded me, like, as much as where I was at a predominantly white institution, for me leaving, I set back the progression of all those that came before me, that are people of color that had to pave the way. He was like, think of the people the young women are going to come after you. You have the opportunity to keep pushing the envelope, to keep making a space for them in a space where they should be. And so that came to heart. I called a mentor for me, Janice Banks, who played there before me. I was like, yo, and she kind of gave me some of her story. And I had really cool mentor players that believed in me and believed what we could do together. So I stayed. But that, for my parents, I truly appreciate, because they didn't give me a out because things weren't what I liked, right? Again, I wasn't being abused. I didn't like it. I didn't like the change. I didn't like what they were saying. I didn't like how they were putting me in a box. But they gave me the strength to figure out how to make my situation better. And so I did. And I would do it all over again.
I think that plays huge into identity and, the person you are today as well. I mean, a lot of people would, and I hate to compare your story to a general consensus of a lot of people, but a lot of people would sit there and say, well, I don't like this, but, or I don't like this and I'm done. This is the door that I've been waiting on. Like the door is just shut, but your big thing is, but I'm going to figure out how to make this work. And you figured it out. So this experience so far getting through college, and you said you played overseas as well, correct?
Yeah. So I had the opportunity by my senior year to really have a national presence. And it was funny because it was my basketball, but it was more so my character and personality. Mm-hmm. And so God gave me this platform where the other 3 years, I gave God all the glory. By the time I got to my senior year, I began to find my identity in being successful. I told you I had health issues. So like by my junior year, I actually couldn't even practice every day. I can only practice every other day because everyone was afraid of what was going to happen due to me passing out my sophomore year. And so my junior year was a little troubled, and I never imagined myself playing professional basketball. I actually, since 5th grade, believed that I would go to law school and be the first Black woman president of the United States of America. And, it's still there. Coach showed me my sophomore year of college that you could actually impact lives before they needed a lawyer. And she was a great mentor to me, and that was Kathy Bennett. And so I ran with that. So going into my junior year, I knew that I was going to look to coach some, and I had the best year of my life spiritually with the Lord, and just seeing God's transformational hand on our campus. But we had a coaching change, and I decided that all the limits that were put on me medically, that I would get in the best shape of my life. And I'll do it as safe as I could. And I did it with my trainer, and I had a lot of people insight on that, but I got in the best shape of my life, Marci. And I got a new coach in that was from Stanford. So Bobby Kelsey. And the first day she saw me, she was like, you could go pro. And that was the first person that ever told me that. And I had already, because we had to get new coaches, we were leading our team without no coaches. And I was just getting into the best shape of my life, which I had been in really good shape before, but going into my junior year, because of all the limitations everyone was putting on me due to the fear of what could happen to me medically, I wasn't in great shape. It was hard. I was getting injured. I was having all these things because I actually couldn't physically work out every day. And with no coaches, I decided to take, my fate in my own hands. And so I went for it. And Bobby saw me, and she was in love with my game. She was in love with my personality. She was like, let's go. And I was like, me?
Yeah, I love Bobby Kelsey. I got to say, get your butt in the gym. That's her motto right there, right? Get your butt in the gym.
I coached on her staff when she said that during the press conference. So I know all about it.
I love it. I love it. Well, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And it's something you don't have to backtrack on. Nope. Words don't ring more true than that.
It doesn't. And she meant it. And she didn't have to tell me that. She knew as a player, I was up in there every day, multiple hours a day, and still kept my grades together. But anyway, yeah, senior year, I kind of lost myself in the achievement in a dream that I didn't even know that I could accomplish. I actually had a very unsuccessful first half of my senior year because of all the pressure I put on myself and trying to be the savior for all my teammates. We had a rough go with the coaching change, not due to coaching, but due to just stuff that you go through, mental health, relationship changes. Yeah. So I was the go-to for a lot of my teammates, and I took on their problems personally. So when Bobby came in, I was stressed out, didn't even know it. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to save this person, save that person, and I needed saving from my own self. And so I lost myself in like being that person for everybody. I don't know if you ever took the Enneagram. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say the Enneagram, Marci?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I haven't taken it yet, but yeah.
Okay. I think it's dope. It gives some insight. Well, I'm a 2. Okay. I'm a 2 wing 3. So that's a helper. And you find a lot of validation in being needed. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I didn't know that at the time, but I loved being needed, right? My coaches, the staff before, like I was close with them. They told me all the problems. I would pray with them. We would walk through stuff. I was a player. They were the coach, but we had a lot of interactions like that. And I was that person to a lot of my teammates. And through an organization I was in, Athletes in Action, which is a faith-based organization, I was that for a lot of my peers across all of our sports in Wisconsin. So that became more of my identity, that person that everyone needed, to the point that I was failing at a gift that God had given me. I was not doing well at the beginning of my senior year. And that was eating me up because failure was a fear of mine, right? Not meeting the mark. I was performance driven. As much as my parents gave me all they gave me, a part of me believed that if I did not perform, though, that I would not be loved. Does that make sense? I didn't know I connected that, but because I was usually performing at a high level, when I didn't hit that mark, the beginning of my senior year, I was crushed. Like I began to see that my identity in Christ was transforming to this identity of achievement in all things. Like we brought back this organization at Wisconsin called Say So. It was like student athletes equally supporting others. Like everyone wanted me to run for president. I went for vice president because of all my things. And then at the end of the year, they were running this thing down it was like female athlete of the year. And they were giving all these things. This person was in Say So. They led their team. I'm thinking it's me. It wasn't. It was my good friend Dorcas. And she was doing all those things, but she was like an Olympian in track. And they didn't say what sport to the end because I would have gave it away. And another point of failure for me, like I didn't achieve. Like at the beginning of my senior year, I didn't achieve. Now, I was about to lose my starting position at the middle of my senior year, right into Big Tens. And me and Bobby Kelsey had a closed door, knockout, drag out conversation because she was a first time head coach and she was on her 5th offensive identity for us. And I was the captain and I was struggling. And we both called each other out because those were relationships I had with my coaches, that they respected me enough to honor what I said. And I respected them enough to honor what they said and bring all that together with the team. And so we had a knockout draw conversation and I was about to lose my starting spot and the person earned it. And I said, you know what? Don't start me, but believe in me, believe in this team, give us a chance. We decided as seniors that we would sacrifice our senior year to let her put in her system. So please do that. And so she promised me that she would. And I promised her that I'm going to let go of all the past and I'm just going to play. And so the second half of my senior year was amazing to the point that I was almost drafted. And I didn't believe still that I could go play pro until that happened. And then I started getting all these phone calls after my senior year. and my identity still was an achievement. And I don't think I was ready to be drafted because my identity wasn't in Christ anymore. It was in what I thought I could achieve. Performance based. Everything was performance based for me. So it wasn't just basketball for me. It was in general. Achieving became an idol for me. And so I didn't want to go here, but I shared this story a couple of days ago at a conference I was at. But the day after we lost to Minnesota in the Big Ten tournament, the next weekend, I went home to celebrate my older brother's birthday, and we actually had a terrible incident in St. Louis. We were actually discriminated against due to the color of our skin. My brother wasn't let into a pub, and the bouncer started calling us all out of our name, which ignited police officers to run over, not knowing the situation. And they treated my brother, myself, and a good friend of mine very poorly. We were beat in the street. We were accosted. I was attempted rape by a police officer. And my whole life changed. My whole life changed, Marci. Like nothing basketball could have given me. My parents who had protected me all my life, like all the idols I had been saving money since I was 10. Like all that went to secure that our future would be safe, with lawyer fees and all that good stuff. And everything I knew, all the achievement I had successfully attained, Marci, crumbled like in one night, in a 1 hour span. And I tell people when I share that story that who I was died that day. And it was March 17th, 2012. The who I was died on the streets that day because all my idols, all the achievement meant nothing. It meant nothing in that moment, nothing. And I went through 2 months of struggle. Like I was trying to make a decision about my future. I had some of my former coaches ask me to come coach with them. I was trying to still graduate. This turned my family upside down. It broke me in many ways. And so achievement couldn't hold me, it couldn't keep me warm. Like it couldn't give me anything more than what it did. And it was nothing when it came down to my life. And God had to reassure me that, but in my eyes, Anya, you're still perfectly loved, no matter what they did to you on the streets, no matter what they attempted to do to you in that stairwell, no matter what they called you, no matter if you had a great senior year or just a mediocre, because half of it was good and half of it was poor. Like I had to reallow God to redefine who I was, Marci. And so my transition from college to professional was rough because I was trying to figure out who I was after that deep situation. And after it also showed me where my identity was in, it was in achievement. And so I actually ended up taking an Athletes in Action tour. I went with a USA team to the Ukraine and Moldova, June of 2012. And we went to play against our national teams. And I had WNBA players, Sid Spencer. We had some professional players. And then some of us had just graduated from college. And actually 2 were still in college. And we went to the Ukraine and Moldova for 3 weeks. And I was able to share my story. They preached the word of God to me. They loved me. They allowed me just to release all the stress that I had been holding on to. And this is how stressed I was. And I know I'm jumping around and we got to get off here soon. But my senior year, February 2012, I actually had a heart attack during a basketball game.
Wow. I
know it's wild, Marci.
I had no idea.
I figured. I wasn't sure if I ever shared that with you, but against Michigan, I was so stressed. I was trying to do all the things and I was trying to achieve all the things. I told you I'm a sickle cell trait and I had already passed out my sophomore year. So that actually weakened my body and my immune system. And so even though I got in the best shape of my life going to my senior year, I was pushing my body beyond what it could handle on a daily basis. And so I literally had a heart attack during a basketball game. And so that was February. I was wearing a heart monitor for over a month. So when that thing happened in St. Louis, God saved me because when the police officer was trying to rip my clothes off, I had pads all over my chest because I was wearing a heart monitor. And so not only was I screaming the name of Jesus, and I believe there's power in the name of Jesus, which we had the most awkward conversation as he was trying to rip off my clothes and I'm screaming Jesus and trying to pepper spray me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I am calling out to Jesus." And I was like, "Do you know him?" And he was like, "I'm Catholic." So Marci, we're sitting on this dirty stairwell. I'm handcuffed. Dude is like, I'm Catholic. So we just paused and looked at each other. Like, he is breathing on my face, trying to rip off my clothes. And we are staring at each other. And I'm like, so if you know the Lord, what are we doing? Like, how are we here?
Why are you here, sir? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's just, wow, there's a whole lot to unpack here.
there's so much. And we don't have time for that. But
Yeah.
it blew my mind. It just blew my mind. So the Lord saved me. And over my years, I've been able to heal and walk through that. But man, like the transition for me, I made it overseas with pending charges against me. Those charges didn't get dropped, and they all got dropped because they that night told us that we were ignorant N-words that didn't know our rights, right? And so when they realized that not only could we read and write, but we knew our rights and we had great representation, everything was dropped. And they actually flipped their story to say that they were intimidated by these two big Black women. Lord, 2012. So fast forward, I'm overseas. I accepted. I went and played in the top division in Germany, and ended up playing with one of my teammates from Wisconsin. She came over after me. We had an amazing time, but I was still trying to seek who I was because I had been accosted. My reality of who I was just tarnished in those streets due to that situation. So I was in Germany, like not fully knowing who I was, but God was still ministering. I was still open to hearing from God, but I was a little bit lost. And it wasn't because I was still playing basketball, but achievement wasn't king for me anymore. Like I wanted to be great. Like I wanted to do those things, but achievement didn't do anything for me anymore. Like I realized I couldn't stay in that, but I also didn't feel free enough to say that I was a child of God because of what I felt that day in the street. So I ended up breaking my foot and ripping all my ligaments like 2 months in. And then I still tried to keep playing for a month and a half. I had the opportunity to help coach our team to the championship. And then I came back home and I reached out to my mentor, Kathy Bennett, and she let me come be a GA at Northern Illinois and thus started my coaching career. I did not ever miss not playing basketball because my identity wasn't in basketball. I was worried if I achieved enough. Like, did I achieve what I was supposed to achieve as a professional basketball player? Like, was my basketball career at Wisconsin what it should have been? So it kind of those things haunted me. But as I continued to live, God sent people in my life, and I decided to give all of myself over to the Lord. Like the achievement part, if I failed or if I didn't fail, if I was a successful basketball player in other people's eyes, because approval meant a lot to me. Who cared? Because I was perfectly loved by God. So when I got done playing overseas, and some people could say that I was forced out, but honestly, it was a God thing. When I was in Germany, I was coaching 3 teams, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it, not just because it was around basketball, but because I was pouring into people. Something that I have always loved, Marci, was seeing people reach their greatness. And it brought the best out of me. So I absolutely loved it. And I still had the bug to play. So when I came back and after my foot healed, as a GA, I played every day in practice. You know, as an assistant coach, I was a player's coach. Okay, I was playing. But then I got to go play professionally with the Milwaukee Aces for 2 years. So in 2017, 2018, which was I would say it should be considered like the G League, like the NBA. And I had a great time. And what I could say in my encouragement, because I feel like I'm talking way too much.
You're good. You're good.
Sorry. Well, I'm not sorry, but I just feel bad. I feel a little bad. But my identity, basketball, I always understood that basketball could be taken from me any moment. And it became my mantra when I passed out my sophomore year of college. I always knew that. But if I was living, I should always be achieving. And what keeps me now is if I'm already perfectly loved by Christ, then no matter what I'm doing, as long as I'm doing it for his glory, I am achieving because I'm already his. Like I'm the greatest achievement because I'm his creation. So I should work hard because I want to give him glory and I want to do the best that I can do, right? Mm-hmm. I should be a great leader because I want other people to also experience that. But if my identity is found in something that can be taken away from me so easily, then should that be the crux of my identity? Should it? So that would be my question. If it can be taken from you, if basketball or any sport can be taken from you, you know, if money can be taken from you, you know, so your status in society, if all of those things can be taken due to life happenings, should that be your identity?
Well, now that basketball is in the maybe in the rearview mirror, but still a vehicle for you to connect with people. What about if we were to talk about what you're doing right now, human to human, you're consulting, you getting out? What if that business was taken from you? How?
Oh, I'll be so sad. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Part of it is because I didn't even know that I'll be doing this like this.
Yeah.
Our mantra is we help people love themselves better. So anything dealing with the emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, and relational, which I think are like the 5 key human elements. We deal with those things. I feel like if human to human was taken, I would actually still be doing what I'm doing. Like I'm walking in my purpose.
Right.
I'm mentoring people. I'm coaching people. I'm leading them. And I can do that coaching basketball. I can do that through our trainings in human to human. I do that as a minister at a church. I do that as a head girls basketball coach. Like I do that. To me, wherever I go, that's what I'm doing.
You were living, breathing, living that testament, that passion.
100%. Yeah.
No matter what the label is. Yeah.
No matter what the label is. And so you can't take that from me. If I'm in a wheelchair, I'm still going to preach Christ. I'm still going to be helping people love themselves better. Like, boom. Like you ask me my purpose, bam, there it is, But the vehicle of it, so basketball could be a vehicle, track could be a vehicle, coaching could be a vehicle, your career, wherever you're at, could be a vehicle, but that's not your purpose. So thus, that's not your identity. It's just a vehicle for you to walk out your purpose while knowing who you are.
Right. It takes very self-contained, self-confidence, being self-assured. You've had that. You've had it from a long age. We've heard so much of your story. Where are people falling short today? I mean, there's such, we see it, a lack of confidence in people, specifically in leadership, unfortunately, and how that affects leadership style and the whole, the domino effect of that. So what's your take on filling that gap and raising and training more confident people?
Sure. To me, no matter what position you sit in, if you lack identity, you're going to lack security and self-confidence. So again, if your identity is in culture, or I have to be this type of person to sit in this seat, then you're trying to morph your identity to some standard that can change, that you like, what? When I think about these things, it's basic one-on-one. I think society, which people make society, but we've made it harder than it should be. You find your identity in something that can't change. So what's your passion? Who has God created you to be, right? And if that's the case, and that goes with me everywhere that I go. So if I'm the CEO of a company, if I'm the athletic director at a university, then I'm not putting on an athletic director hat. We use that a lot. I'm actually talking about that tomorrow at the NCAA Inclusion Forum. This idea of wearing many hats. What I'm saying is you're not putting on a hat. You're bringing you to all of those different scenarios. You should be there in all of those places. It shouldn't change if I'm a mother, if I'm a wife, if I'm a coach, or if I'm an athletic director. No, if I'm passionate, if I like to lead people, right? If I'm humorous, like that should be in all that I do. And I believe that we try to morph our identity into these compartments that would benefit us in this situation. But what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow here actually is that compartmentalization is meant for a season. If you try and live a life that compartmentalizes you, you're going to lose yourself, and you're not going to be able to reach your capacity, because only a piece of you is here and a piece of you is there. And I think that's our problem. So when I become a parent, my child has got to be excellent. So I no longer bring kindness and compassion when they're training. I only bring rigid, high standards. So they're only getting this of me here and that of me here. And now we've raised the kids that don't know how to fully be themselves. They don't even know where to find themselves, because they're trying to fit a mold that they're not called to fit. They should be bringing their full self to everything that they're doing. Does that make sense, Marci?
Whole self all the way. Yes. Anya for president.
Well, it was a dream since 5th grade. I ran, it was Al Gore, George Bush back then, and I ran, and I won, and I did all the things I said I was going to do.
I love it. That was actually going to be one of the questions I was going to ask you towards the end of this thing.
Oh,
but
really?
Now I looked at the time and I'm like, oh, how did this happen? How did time pass by so fast? But I was going to ask you if you have one of those big, nasty, hairy goals that you'd be willing to share with us, or maybe what's on top of your vision board. Is it a presidential campaign?
Oh, wow.
Come on. What's on top of your vision board?
Okay. See, what's on top of my vision board, I'm walking in right now. So I want to to start this nonprofit called Homes for Humans, because I believe that housing is a basic right. And so we actually just got approved by the IRS to officially be a 501c3. But that has been the top of my goal. Outside of another one is starting our family ministry, which we just launched last month. I just believe in generational wealth. I believe that that's not just money and inheritance, that's spiritual, right? That's experiential, right? So the experiences I've had, I want my children and children's children to have those things. Proverbs 13:22, I stand on. A good father, a good parent leaves an inheritance for their children's children. So for me, that is the top of my vision board. I know that's not what you were getting to, but if that means, being the president of the United States of America, which I think is a high call, I don't think that's something I aspire. I think you have to be called to that because it's hard. It's life-changing and it's a lot. But if that's what God has for me, Marci, I'm here for that.
You were heart and mind and eyes wide open, and that cannot be denied. You've talked so much about everything that inspires you. That was one other thing I wanted to ask you here towards the end, but, is there an accomplishment that you made actually on court at some point, suited up or in practice or in a game that you remember that still makes you kind of smile or smirk today? Something that if you were to go back and think about little Anya playing basketball, and little Anya means all the way through, playing overseas. Okay. Anya dressed up, suited up, and I go back and think of a memory that makes me smile. What is it?
I gotta pick one.
Yeah, just one little
thing.
I had skills. I was a baller.
You're funny. I don't know. The first thing that came to mind, can I give you two? Is that okay? I'm sorry. I'm not answering.
Please give me two.
All right. So, when I was in the Ukraine and I was struggling with who I was, so the summer going into my professional year, the Ukrainians, a lot of the children did not speak English, but they knew who LeBron James was. And so I actually, that was the best coaching I had ever gotten in those 3 weeks as an adult. The babies called me Lady LeBron.
No.
And I started and I was a beast. And I just I felt free. Even though I was struggling with my identity, I had a coaching staff that was pouring into me. They loved me. They saw my talent. They believed in all of me. And that was the first time I had gotten that, and me being in a position to walk in that. And I love that. And then you made me think of when I was in college, we were playing against Iowa. Not starting, but I played a lot. And I had a really good teammate, Tierra. She was my point guard when Ray Lynn graduated.
Uh-huh.
So my coaches, that group they said I could only score on the block. Now I was the shortest post player in the Big Ten my freshman year. And they're like, you can only score on the block. So I got the hook shot down. They didn't want me to dribble or nothing. And I could. They just wanted me to play my role, this role. So here we are. It's 2 seconds left on the clock or whatever. And I got fouled. We're down by 2, Marci. I'll never forget. Because it just cracked me up. Because my coaches, they believed in what they thought I could do, but they didn't believe in me holistically, right? So I also shot 70% from the free throw line, maybe 68 at this point. So
okay.
I get fouled. We're down by 2. There's I don't even know. There might have been 1 second. It was seconds left on the game clock. So I step up to the line. Everybody out of my peripherals on the bench, I'm sure
nervous for you right now. I'm feeling this right now. I just want you to know I'm kind of nervous. What's going to happen?
Okay. All right. It's against Iowa. And I hate to say it, we never beat Iowa or Ohio State during my time. We beat everybody else. So regulation game, seconds left. I get fouled. We're down by 2. I get 2 free throws. Everyone's freaking out on the bench except for my point guard, Tierra. She is standing fists clenched, let's go. This is the moment. I see her out of my peripheral, and I took all 10 of my seconds. I was much like Giannis. He went over 10, but I was right at 10, right? I took my 10 seconds. I always, I talk to the Lord, all things through Christ. I had this whole beat with my dribble, whatever. I sink the first one, Marci. Everyone's like, oh, okay.
The crowd goes wild. Okay.
Yeah. There's a chance, there's a chance. So I get the ball again, my teammates on the line. Before that first one, no one said anything to me because they're like, oh God.
Yeah.
And then now my teammates are like, okay, yeah, you got it. You got it. They're talking to me now. I do my same thing. I do exactly what I practice. I don't know if I was breathing, but I did do exactly what I practiced. Marci, I sunk the next one, right? Tie game. We're going into overtime, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, a timeout was called, whatever. That timeout happened. I turned to the bench and it's just me and Tierra. She's like, let's go, let's go. Like we hooked arms. It was like a moment I would never forget. Like
you lose yourself a little bit, right? Yeah, you lose yourself in that moment.
But Marci, I believed I was clutch. Now it was during, if it was the first quarter, I may miss the free throw. Before I didn't miss free throws in the fourth quarter. I didn't miss free throws. I don't know why my mom used to hate that. She used to be like, free throws are free. Make your free throws. My sister shot like, she led the A10 when she played at SLU in free throw percentage. Like they were all great. Me and free throws, we had an inconsistent relationship, but it was very consistent when the game was on the line. I was clutch. Okay. So I don't know. My coaches didn't know. I knew. So I hit the free throws, and Tierra, that's my girl. That's Kimpo. She was like, let's go. That was our moment. We came together, we hit arms, and it was a wrap. Like I did shake after that because I knew that everything was dependent on me hitting the free throws. But I hit it and I loved it. I love that moment. I'll never forget that moment. So those are my two. Sorry that I didn't follow direction.
I love it. That's a big moment. And then before you got fouled, the coaches were just thinking there, less is more, Anya, less is more. Just but then you got that whole big thing, and that's amazing. Those are memories you got to have. I love it.
Yeah.
Anya, it has been a absolute blessing to have you share today. You have just such a strong sense of identity, and it's apparent in everything that you do, everything you talk about. You're authentic. Your self-awareness it's a breath of fresh air to me. Every time we get a chance to talk, and your empathy and compassion just oozes all over the place, all over the podcast right now. And, I know that you're doing great work. You're inspiring trust and respect from those that you touch. And I know that you're creating those positive and more inclusive environments everywhere you go. And I am a better person for having spent the last 40 or so minutes with you. And I hope our listeners feel the same way, because I love connecting with you.
Same. Marci, you're doing great things. I appreciate you. Thank you for this platform, and thank you for caring about athletes and people that they're people first, right? But people that happen to be athletes and their transition. And I hope my story touches someone's life and encourages them to put their identity in something that won't change. I would promote Jesus because I believe he died for us and cares for us, but figure that out for yourself and hold on to that and let that guide you.
I love it. And how do we get in touch with you, follow you, and support you? Social media? What's the best way?
My sister would love this because she's my marketing person. She's always Anya, tell them, and I always forget. So Marci, God bless you. Okay. Yes. So our website is Who2Man. So HU and the number 2 MAN. So Who2Man.com. You could find out all kinds of information from what we do on a daily basis. You could follow us on Instagram at _Human2Human. And it's all one word, and then the number 2 in there. And it's the same thing on Facebook, Twitter. I'm on there, but I'm under Anya B. Covington. So you can just type my name in. I'm only one of 2 people that has that full name, so I should pop up. And if you want to email, it's Human2Human. Again, that 2 is in there. So Human2Human21@gmail.com. And I'm here to talk and meet with anybody. Appreciate you, Marci.
I love that. We'll make sure all that information gets down in the show notes. Anya, go be amazing. Thank you for the time again.
My pleasure.
For everybody else, stay tuned for our next episode of The Stripped Naked. And thank you again, Anya, for being honest and stripping naked and being very vulnerable with us. You've shed a lot of light and love. So thank you.